I'm Jake Avila. I'm from Australia and my novel is Cave Diver.
My first question for you is, why did you choose to enter a competition with your book?
It was a hard decision actually, partly because I didn't think there were any out there. So I was overjoyed to find that there was one. And I found you, I'd just missed the entry date. And I thought, right, I must remember April. And I almost missed the second. So I was very happy to find you.
Yeah. Did you think that there's something that you were looking to get out of the competition? I mean, besides a win or a finalist, award.
Absolutely. Sometimes I feel like a lot of independent authors that we're sort of in a bit of a void. You self-publish, you're looking for someone to read your book. And the competition was like an avenue, a door opening for a platform. Having read about marketing, it's something that we've sort of all got to face. I saw it as a fantastic opportunity and, overjoyed to be here.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you.
Thanks.
Let me talk just a little bit about book process.
Yeah.
Would you say, are you a kind of seat-of-the-pants writer, or are you a planner and a plotter?
Good question, Peter. In Australia, there's a good phrase for seat of the pants. We call it paddock bashing. Just imagine strapping into an old car and driving across a paddock full of holes. It's exhilarating, and sometimes some of your best work comes out of that, but I'm also a planner. Particularly when I'm taking on a big project, that act of commitment, you're going to invest months, if not years, in something, and you've got to have some sort of idea about where you're going. That said, as all planners know, wonderful changes of directions occur. The book I'm writing now, for example, I covered a whole wall in post-it notes, had all the characters charted out, and within about 3 weeks, I wasn't looking at it anymore because I'd created a new chart on my computer, which was much more accurate. But that couple of days I spent that let me start. It gave me the confidence that I could begin.
Now, a lot of what you write, and especially in Cave Diver, there's some research that you must have had to have accomplished, because even though you might have actually gone there in your travels, you still have to do some research. Can you tell us how you view research? Does it help you? Does it?
Look, I read somewhere that good research is like an iceberg. For the reader, the bulk of it has to be invisible, but it lends that strength, that weight, and the trick is, I think, to imbue it in the writing. You don't want to overwhelm anybody with what you've learned. You want to seamlessly weave it in. The research was huge. I'd been thinking about the setting, which was Papua, for years, and had picked up any old book I could find because it's not an easy place to get to. Also very expensive to get to. So no, I haven't been there. But I also use the internet extensively. For the technical aspects of the diving, I knew I needed help. I was very fortunate to get in touch with the Australian Cave Diving Association and had a chat to the president, who ended up being just an amazing asset. Not only did he vet all the diving sequences, he read the whole novel, gave it his feedback. All errors are mine, John. But I'm indebted to him for that input, as well as, say, the big wave sequences. So I think, lots of research, but as also any writer knows, is you can't sort of procrastinate with research. I think you also learn by doing, because some of your research will never make the book, which is how it has to be.
Speaking of specifics about your book, and we talked a little bit last night, but that opening sequence was so amazing that I think I told you all the judges put you in the, hey, this is great pile. When you finished writing that, and I know you probably went back and fixed it, but when you finished with that segment, did you sit back and go, hey, wow, that's pretty good?
To tell you the truth, I did. I loved that sequence, and I wrote it many times over, and I kept burrowing down into the exact detail, because I realised, I'd come back to it a month later and I'd go, that doesn't quite make sense. So it really had a lot of energy put into it, and I guess as a surfer, and I must add here, I've never surfed any huge surf, but even 6-foot surf can be terrifying when you're an average person. I wanted to just, channel every detail into trying to give the reader an experience of what it was like. I mean, I remember when I first surfed, I was in my late 30s, I couldn't believe that it could feel like that. The closest thing I can liken it to for an American might be skiing, that exhilaration of going faster than you could ever possibly run. In surfing, we call it the glide. But yeah, look, it was I love that sequence too.
Do you have a special process you go through besides research for writing an action sequence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's like I'm trying to visualize, I'm trying to share my imagination as cinematically as I can with the reader. And it's sort of weaving in the internal emotion of the feelings that you're going through with really concise and exciting description. So it's you're working on a number of levels to try and just sort of create the action so that the person can become immersed in it. Mm-hmm. I've always called myself something of an armchair adventurer. You know, I'm nowhere near as brave as the people I write about, but I can vicariously participate in their world, and that's what I'm trying to create for my reader.
Yeah. Well, it certainly works.
Yeah.
Very effective.
Thank you.
We also talked a little bit about, your villains. They're nasty. I mean, they're like nasty, but there's a purpose behind all of it. Like it's Sura is her name.
Yes, Sura Ciento.
She's a horrible person.
Now, are you giving away for readers?
No, within a couple paragraphs when you meet her, yeah. But you had to have you had to think her out because she's not cardboard. She has a reason.
Absolutely.
For being the way she is.
Absolutely. I really struggled with my bad guys because I wanted them to have a rationale, and I wanted them to not be sort of two-dimensional or cliched. So I felt like she has a change of direction. I won't go into the details, but the reason that she entered into her sort of evil activities changes throughout the course of the story. So she changes, and for me that was an important moment because then I started to believe in her more. Mm-hmm. So I think that all the bad guys have got a reason for being there, and I think that helps flesh them out as characters because we like to have our bad guys have purpose and meaning.
Mm-hmm. Is the idea of characterization, not bad guys seem to be a little easier because they're bad, they're really interesting. But do you find it easier or harder with the heroes and the good people to develop their character?
I think I absolutely do find them harder, and I think particularly with a flawed protagonist like mine, a guy that's got to overcome a big challenge in his life. In my first book, I made the mistake of I guess I was looking for the same idea in a different book, but my protagonist there was too flawed, too weak, and he could never really become the hero. So one of my challenges was to get my flawed hero to be believable. You had to believe that the guy he had the resources, the skills, the inner being to rise above the challenges that were holding him back. And I think that that took a lot of time too to sort of, for me to believe it. I think as authors, we have these characters begin to form in our minds. They start with a name and you create a little database and eye colour, height, school, all these things that start to come together, and then you start writing them, and then the dialogue happens, and then essentially they start to become real people and you get to know them, and of course again that leads to some interesting deviations from your original plot. But I firmly believe that characterization makes the book. You can be fantastic with setting and plot, but it's the characters that you've got to believe in them, don't you? You've got to want to share their journey.
I'm going to let you ask a few there.
Well, the one I always like to ask is, do you remember when you had the thought that, hey, I could be a writer, maybe that's something I'd like to do? Do you remember when that took place?
Yeah, when I was young, I was very creative, and I actually did write a lot. I wrote a lot of illustrated stories, and then I drifted into comics and cartoons and a bit of music, and I guess I knew I had a creative energy that I was looking to channel. And then I had a roundabout career, and before ending up back at university, sort of in my 30s, and doing multimedia. And we were doing, audio, visual. And it was in the script writing that I sort of realised this is where I'm at home. And then I began to write short stories, wrote a novel. Then I realised I needed to pay some bills, so that it turned into opinion editorial for magazines, political, humour, sports. But all the time there was this feeling of, I want to tell my story. I want to get to grips with what I'm interested in about people and life. And that's firmed up, so I've now left teaching to concentrate on the writing, because I've realised that that's really where I'm at. And I guess, it's a bit of a leap of faith, but you've got one life, so I'm investing everything I can in it.
And when you first started writing, do you think from then until now, who you are writing for has changed?
That's a good question. One of the things I did is sort of working out who the novel is for. Who's my ideal reader? Say it's someone who's interested in nature, adventure. You can come up with a whole range of things, but at the end of the day, I realised that, and that may be one of my challenges, because there is no Cave Diver 2 at the moment. I've moved into another genre. And the books I was writing before that under a different name are in a different genre too. So I haven't quite settled on that genre. So most of my novels have been standalones. So I suppose I could say I'm looking to entertain, and I do think that I've had women read my novel, and there's this sort of, some women sort of look at an action adventure novel and think not for me. But I've been, pretty pleased with the reaction from the women, that they're getting something out of it. I guess, there's a depth there of emotion, and there's a thematic truth. Perhaps that's, balancing the action.
Some of the conversation last night we had at the finalist dinner was really revolving around series books and how people might not even pick up your book if they know there's only one.
Absolutely.
Did that change anything for you?
It did.
Yeah.
It did resonate, and I did actually sort of start coming up with a synopsis for Cave Diver 2, if you like. Mm-hmm. Thinking of all the energy and investment that goes into creating these real people, and that people might want to read on. And I do end the book on a bit of a, what next? Yep. So, I'm leaving that door definitely open. I suppose the reason that I didn't dive into it straight away was because this other novel that's been churning away underneath, it was just like, if not now, when? But I'm definitely open to serialisation, because I do understand that it's a loyal readership is fantastic.
We want to wrap it up, I think.
I do want to wrap it up. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What is a question that you hope that we would ask you?
What drives you?
Yeah, what drives you?
Yeah, I'm asking that because I'd like to know myself. Because I've sometimes wondered, like some days when I go to the computer, like, that writer's block thing, I don't want to be there. I sometimes think the sun is shining, it's a beautiful day. I love to be outside, swimming, surfing, doing whatever, but sitting here on this keyboard. And yet, if I do have a day where I just say, no, I'm not doing it, I've got the guilt that night. And so there's something compelling me to write. I do honestly believe that it's what I'm about. That you find yourself, what gives you satisfaction, what's going to give you that contentment in your life. And so what drives me, I guess, is that creative process that I alluded to earlier. There's something in me that needs to create, and I think writing is my medium. And I know it's a long journey. I've read somewhere that it can take, 7 to 20 years to become a good writer, and I can understand that now. You only have to pick up something you wrote, a couple of years ago and go, oh, I'd do that differently, because we're learning all the time.
Well, I have to say, for all the judges and the people that have read your book now, we're glad you went on that journey.
Thank you, Peter. I'm delighted that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
I was surprised and delighted. Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Did you have any inkling beforehand that, hey, I got a shot at this, or?
I suppose I had some very positive feedback from some of the people that I had read the book, and so I sort of was, feeling optimistic that I was in with a shot. But until that final moment, yeah, I had no idea.
What do you think now? You have the award. Are you think you're going to be able to use that to either inspire yourself? I mean, of course, it's a marketing piece, but does it inspire you to keep going?
Oh, look, absolutely. What it does is validate my decision to pursue full-time writing. I mean, I stopped my teaching career, and I sort of felt like I could do it, and it's just a wonderful validation. As I said on the podium when I accepted the award, when you're an independent author, it's so hard to cut through. It's so hard to be noticed, and to have an esteemed group of judges examine my work and really enjoy it. I mean, that's been one of the most pleasing things, is people genuinely enjoyed the book. So yeah, it's fantastic.
I thought you were going to say it validated your decision to bring your father.
That too.
Yeah. So has he said anything to you, your father?
Not quite. I mean, I think he's pretty chuffed. He was too busy, videoing the moment to say anything.
And that's chuffed, not chaffed. If it's in the United States, chaffed is bad.
That's it. Chaffed is like on the saddle, right? Like chafed. Yeah.
Yeah, chafed and chaffed and chuffed. But what are you going to do now that you've won the award? What's your next thing that you?
Well, we thought I was literally going to come to Phoenix and go home, and my wife said, "No, you're not going to do that. You're going to go on a road trip." And my next novel's set in the US, so I can't go to every location, but I'm going to go to some, and I'm really going to enjoy getting some first-hand perspective on your amazing landscapes.
Well, at night you're going to curl up. You're going to have that trophy with you, the Clive trophy.
Yeah.
You're going to have $1,000 of Dirk Cussler's money. That's just the sweetest thing.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Who's the next person you're going to tell? I mean, your dad knows. Who's the next?
Well, I'll probably give my wife a call, because she's my #1 supporter. So yeah, I'll give her a call. I'll check the time first though.
Nah, wake her up. Let's wake her up.